I thought that since this is the first show I'm doing from inside the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex this year, I would go full screen. I'd remove some of the borders. Of course, our logo. I went wrong side. Our logo's still right here. But look, here it is. We're here. We're at the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. And a good Wednesday afternoon, everybody. May 22nd, 2024. On the South Side Beat, 3 p.m. Eastern, as we are every Monday through Friday. My name is Crisan. Chris Halicke will be joining us pretty shortly. We just wrapped up here on the South Side with practice OTAs number 2, open locker room, which closed about 30 minutes ago. Got some stuff in the feed on DKPittsburghSports.com and made my way to site TBD, wherever I can do the show from on this particular day, here in the indoor facility where it is hot. It is warm in here. If I look a little sweaty, if I look a little beaten by the sun, it's because I am. But we're inside. We're in the shade. We're doing okay. And I know you all are doing okay as well, because some pretty significant news, of course, dropped earlier this afternoon, late this morning. The NFL Draft 2026, is coming to Pittsburgh. Now, obviously, they'll determine the location of that later down the road. Steelers president Art Rooney spoke today. Art Rooney II spoke today, talking about the event coming to Pittsburgh. And, of course, we'll hear tomorrow from Governor Shapiro, who's expected to speak at Acrisure Stadium tomorrow around 1:30-ish. So looking forward to hearing what the governor has to say about it. Ed Gainey will be there, of course, to speak about it too. But this is a huge deal. The draft's coming to Pittsburgh. It's going to be a major tourist event, as it is for any town, any city that gets this draft. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody make their way into Pittsburgh. It's going to benefit the city. It's surely going to be an opportunity for the city to display itself. Obviously, anytime an event like this happens, Pittsburgh's doing really well right now. Of course, with that, the return of the Atlantic 10 basketball tournament coming to PPG Paints Arena in a couple of years. The NCAA tournament just came back this past year. And, of course, the Oakland-Kentucky upset happened here. So good things are happening in the city of Pittsburgh. And Chris Halicke will join us soon. He'll give us some more thoughts. He was on that story this morning talking about the draft. I'm here at the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex for those that are just tuning in, where OTAs number 2 just wrapped up, and got some thoughts, got some takeaways. I was able to watch yesterday's practice, but had to go over to the Pirates to cover the Pirates between their pregame clubhouse access and then, of course, the game against the Giants last night, which turned out to be a really good one. But then, of course, day number 2 of OTAs today out of 10. Joshua says the traffic is going to be absolutely horrible. I have to take the Fort Pitt Tunnel to get here every day, every time I have to come into here, or anytime I have to go downtown. And it's miserable as it is. I can imagine the Fort Pitt, the Squirrel Hill Tunnel, getting on 279 on a 376 are going to be miserable with all of that. But that being said, with the North Shore, you never really know. Going to take a sip of water. Got to stay hydrated in times like this. But anyway, OTAs number 2. After OTAs number 1, as Mark brings up, talking about Justin Fields, how Fields seems very determined. He loves his demeanor. Fields knows the situation he's in. He's very self-aware. He's very knowledgeable when it comes to all of it. And certainly he'll have his opportunity here in Pittsburgh. But now, let us welcome in to the stage one Chris Halicke. Hi, Chris.
What's up, guys?
Talk to us. What's happening?
Oh, man, a whole lot. A whole lot is happening.
You're just skimming over a little bit of yesterday's OTAs, but, of course, right at the top of the show, we addressed the draft coming to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, dude, it's gigantic news, man. It's huge for the city. It's big for football fans in the area. Obviously, not just people in Pittsburgh, but even like really football fans everywhere. But especially people like within driving distance of the Pittsburgh area. But especially obviously for the city of Pittsburgh, it's gonna be great for the city's economy. People are going to get Pittsburgh will be on the national stage, and people will really. I keep telling people, you know, I really try not to sound biased or anything like that, but when you talk about destinations that you should visit in throughout the country, you know, you have your obvious places that you want to go visit just because of either history or touristy stuff or anything like that. But Pittsburgh is always a place that I feel like people more often than not are like, whoa, that place is actually a lot more interesting than I expected it to be. And I think people are going to really understand that here in a couple of years whenever the draft is held there. So it's freaking awesome, man. I had a good feeling about this whenever I was hearing stuff from the whenever I was in Orlando for the owners meetings. A lot of optimism, not only from Art Rooney II when he talked to us, but then obviously talking with some team officials there, some team people there. Some pretty strong optimism I got. I pretty much a sense of it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, whether it would in 26 or 27, and obviously they get the 26 draft. So it's so awesome, dude. It's going to be drafted a couple of years. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It will be, as it was mentioned in our chat. Traffic is going to be abysmal, but it's the price you pay. I think. Yeah. I think you pay that price for it.
Yeah.
I certainly do not want to get involved in any kind of traffic like that. I was just saying I have to commute through the Fort Pitt Tunnel every day. And, I'm good.
Well, most likely with where I'll be living, I'll have to come in from the east. So Squirrel Hill Tunnel, I would assume would be even worse.
Yeah,
so,
actually, it would be.
Yeah, I'd probably have to go through like the waterfront or something. I don't know, but I have to figure out a different way to get there every day. Getting to the south side is not a problem from the east side. It's getting to downtown. Anytime you gotta mess with Squirrel Hill, man, that's a
yeah. OTAs number 2 today.
Yeah.
Number 1, obviously, a lot of focus on the quarterbacks, a lot of focus on Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. DK, of course, wrote about the offensive line as well, and about Pat Fryermuth.
By the way, DK doing a triple header yesterday.
He did. I wrote 3 stories from the Pirates for PNC Park too, so I was busy enough. I actually left before open locker room yesterday because I had to get to Clubhouse for the Pirates yesterday. But that's neither here nor there. Today I was here for the full thing, and today was, for me, it was linebacker day. I was watching Patrick Queen, Landon Roberts, Peyton Wilson. Peyton Wilson looks the part. He just does. Like you see him with measurements, and you see him running the 40 at the combine, and you see him at rookie minicamp, and you see him kind of like standing out amongst the rookies, amongst people that he's supposed to stand out with. But Peyton Wilson looks the part alongside Roberts and Queen. And, you know, talking to Queen and Roberts in the locker room today, they both agreed pretty much. Athlete, fast, someone that's going to be able to help the defense in different ways than what Queen and Roberts, and for the fact of that matter, Cole Holcomb can do. And you can tell that this linebacker room is now built up of a bunch of different parts that fit together. It's kind of the sum, the sum is equal to or greater than. Mm-hmm. And I think that this linebacker room is so transformed from even what we saw last year. Yeah. Right. And Atlanta Roberts swears like, yeah, I was hurt for the last couple of games, but it was not like a nagging thing all year. So Atlanta Roberts feels good. Cole Holcomb's working back. Of course, Patrick Queen, and now Peyton Wilson. It's really different. And I think it's going to be a very improved linebackers room. And I'm curious to see going forward. It's only OTAs number 2. It's only, I'm going to say this ad nauseum, it's only football and shorts day 2. But
yeah, no,
that's what I was looking for today. No,
yeah,
that's good. No, that's what I was looking for.
It's definitely a completely different position, and that can transform the defense overall. I mean, when you talk about where the Steelers have been defensively over the past few seasons, obviously they have star power up front with TJ Watt. They got star power in the back end with Minkah Fitzpatrick. The thing that they've really been missing has been impact, contribution, production, whatever you want to define it as, from the second level. And when you have the ability for that second level to support both the guys in front of them and the guys behind them, to a better extent, both on run defense and pass coverage, it tends to there will be a trickle down effect. That should make everybody up front a little bit better. It should make everybody in the back end a little bit better. And adding Patrick Queen was good enough, in my opinion. Like anything else on top of that would have just been icing on the cake. Because I just thought, I thought alone a duo of Patrick Queen and Landon Roberts, because I really think that those two can play off of each other really well. I think their games mesh together really well. And especially knowing and seeing last year that Landon Roberts was much better in pass coverage than expected in this particular defense. Not that he's the guy that you want him as your dime linebacker on every third down, but he wasn't what's his face? Robert Spillane. I'll put it that way. He at least held his own more often than not. Not that he, again, but then you add, like you said, you add Peyton Wilson to that group. It not only solidifies the position now, but down the road in the future too, because who knows what, Cole Holcomb and Atlanta Roberts might not be part of this group beyond 2024. There are no guarantees there, but Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson, that could be your duo. And if that's your duo and Peyton Wilson turns into the steal of the 24 draft, like overall, not just for the Steelers, but overall, and he really does live up to the billing of being a first round potential type player, and health issues don't become an issue. Like, man, this dude's gonna he could have a very, very lasting impact for sure.
Good. Matthew asks, what do you think Wilson's role will be? Of course, that being Peyton Wilson. I think he's going to have a role specifically in nickel and dime packages. I think he's going to be tremendous in pass coverage for this team. And he's going to allow Landon Roberts and Patrick Queen to blitz more freely. I think he's going to be used as that kind of specialized pass covering linebacker. And he's got the speed for it. Like, that's what he's known for. That's what he does. He runs all over the field. Watch the sprint speed. Watch some of the chase down tackles he's had. I think that's his best fit for this defense right now. And obviously, again, it's early, so we'll see exactly. And it also depends a little bit on Cole Holcomb's rehab and how quickly he's able to come back. Speaking of rehabs, talk to Corey Trice today.
Really quick before I would just say, I think the best, honestly, the best, at least to start off, that the best way for Peyton Wilson to come into this defense is to have a Lawrence Timmons type of contribution early on. And I'm talking about when Lawrence Timmons first came in the league. He was drafted in 2007. For those first couple of years, he was kind of that third guy behind James Ferrier and Larry Foote. Like, those two were the main guy. Obviously, James Ferrier was the main guy in the middle, and then Larry Foote was typically the number two guy. But Lawrence Timmons earned his snaps in the middle, along, when giving Larry Foote, breathers, and every now and then James Ferrier, but James Ferrier's on the field most of the time anyway. But still, Peyton Wilson could be that guy, especially if you face defenses that like to spread you out a little bit more. You might see more Peyton Wilson than you see of Landon Roberts in that game. But when you face certain teams like Baltimore or Cleveland, and who you're probably gonna have to stop the run against a little bit more, not saying Peyton Wilson can't, but shoot, man, Landon Roberts is a phenomenal run defender. I just think it's going to be one of those things where you can interchange those guys while Patrick Queen is the main guy, and then Landon Roberts and Peyton Wilson could kind of be this 2A, 2B type situation, a lot like Lawrence Timmons was alongside Ferrier and Foote.
You're welcome. I was talking to the side over there. I got you. Talking to the side. CJ says, you have a twin, Nick Farabaugh, Steelers now. Nick's a great guy. I know Nick well. I wouldn't say we're twins. We don't look alike. We're good friends. We're friends, though. We're definitely good friends. And Nick's great at what he does. Shout out to Nick. Let me go to Mark here, who says, better MLB mustache, Nick Gonzalez or Paul Skeens? I think it's Gonzalez. Unpopular take. I think it's Gonzalez. But let's get back to football.
Talk about Corey Trice.
Let's take 2025 and get Arch Manning. Joshua, I think you're the only one that has that take. That's all I'm going to say. You're the only one that has that take. But I get what you're saying. Corey Trice told me today that he is not yet cleared for contact, but he'll be 100% by training camp. That was the big Corey Trice news there for you, which is a good sign. Talking about his rehab, talking about getting on track with everything. I asked to put a percentage on it, and he really didn't. But he basically said that he's progressing well, and he feels like he's on track with everything, and that's a good sign for this secondary. Which, a little bit of a change with Dante Jackson being the cornerback too over Levi Wallace. Levi Wallace no longer here, of course. Getting Corey Trice healthy, bringing in Ryan Watts. So it's going to be a piece that, we've talked a lot about Corey Trice, about what he could be. It's going to be a piece that brings a lot of potential to the room. And yeah, as it's mentioned by Stephen A, talking about Darius Rush, what role he could have. Like, this is a lanky cornerback room. This is the avatar cornerback room, as it's been mentioned. So I'm intrigued to see how Corey Trice fits in by the time we get to Latrobe in a couple of months.
Well, I mean, and we're not even talking about, yes, Corey Trice and Darius Rush have their, obviously that they can contribute, but then you're talking about some other guys. Ryan Watts coming in as a 6th round pick out of Texas, who probably profiles a little bit better to play inside, whether it be at slot corner or safety. You got Beanie Bishop, who really profiles as a slot corner, coming as an undrafted free agent. There are a number of options. That's actually making me think that maybe the Steelers don't have to look outside to get one, at least when it comes to slot cornerback. Don't necessarily agree with that about receiver yet, but Randy says, what I heard Russell Wilson say after the workout yesterday, I was impressed. He talks clearly, boosting up his fellow teammates, sounds like a leader. He even fired me up. Obviously, I'm not in the room yet. I won't be in the room. Well, not in the room because we don't go in the room at training camp, but around the players. I won't be around the players until training camp. But from what I can see from afar, and knowing what I read all 3 of DK's columns yesterday. It sure sounds like Russell Wilson, the stuff that was going on in Denver might, I'm not saying it happened, didn't happen, whatever. I wasn't there, and I'm not going to pretend to know. But anything that might or might not have happened there might not have carried over. Maybe it didn't make the trip east of the Mississippi. I don't know. But it doesn't sound like anything that might or might not have happened in Denver is happening in Pittsburgh right now. It sure sounds like Russell Wilson is saying all the right things and doing all the right things. Because you can say a lot, but how does the old cliche go? Your actions speak louder than your words. And it sure sounds like Russell Wilson is doing a lot of the right stuff too. But then again, was also really impressed by what Justin Fields said yesterday too, because he talked for a long time.
Yeah. I think Russell Wilson learned a lesson in Denver that doesn't really need to be discussed too much, because you can tell there's a bit of a difference in his demeanor, in his words, what he uses. And I mean, he takes control in the field as well. It's a good, this kind of leads me into what Stephen A asked. Does the feel or atmosphere of the team differ than last year's OTAs? I think when you just talk about that quarterback position, when you talk about Kenny Pickett going into year 2 versus Russell Wilson going into this year 1 with the Steelers, but also in this like reclamation year for him, a chance for Russell Wilson to rebuild himself here in Pittsburgh. I think last year we were looking for more of a growth from Kenny Pickett and looking for, okay, how does he build upon the good year that he had to finish off 2022? Now we're kind of looking at this with a curious eye. At least that's how I'm doing it. I'm curious. I want to know, like, does Russell Wilson gel with George Pickens well? Who throws the better ball between Wilson and Fields? That's a legitimate question that I have in these settings. I look at how Wilson carries the huddle. I look at how Wilson, even during individual drills and during even stretching, stretching, this, Chris, covering practices, like sometimes you blow it off. It's like, okay, whatever. And they're just stretching. But like, who's doing that stuff with intent? Like, this is the type of year, this is the kind of the type of time, I should say, of the year to look for this kind of thing. And it feels different. It feels like there's a little more juice for Russell Wilson than there did for Kenny Pickett. There was excitement and optimism for Kenny Pickett, but anytime you have a rookie going into his second year and there's that quotient of, will he make that step, or what is he going to be? it's a little different when you have a veteran that's been there, done that, and he's coming back in with a fresh start, and you kind of know what he's about already. So it feels different from that standpoint, I would say.
Yeah. I think that the time to really try to gauge anything when it comes to the overall team feel, and yes, you can get an early sense of it in OTAs and even mandatory minicamp. Like you can get a sense of it. Sure, not denying that, but I think that true feel doesn't happen until those guys show up for training camp, because that's whenever really the season really begins to kind of kick off. Like everything right now, like I said, it's kind of laying the rebar before the concrete's even poured. Because first off, you don't even have your entire team there. You know, Cam Hayward's now, granted, vast majority of the team is there, but Cam Hayward's not there. He's the leader of the defense.
There's some notables that aren't here, but Cam's obviously the largest one.
Right. But again, it's kind of, I mean, if training camp is the preseason, then OTAs and minicamp are the preseason. It's just, I try not to get too overreactive because I know that there are like a whole bunch of clips that go out, from practice, from all over, that they surface on social media, and you can see one thing and be like, man, everything looks different. I cannot feel like that's said every year. But the one thing that I will say is that, and the one thing I will look for is how players respond, because yes, players spoke highly of Kenny last year, but it seemed a little, I expected to hear more about the players talk up Kenny and how they have trust in Kenny. And it's not that saying any player said that they didn't, because nobody said that, but I don't know. I kind of want to get a feel of how things are when the whole team is together. OTAs is kind of difficult to put your finger on that pulse right away and say, oh yeah, things are definitely going to be different this year. Dude, it's still May.
Stephen A.S., who's the OTA's MVP so far, I can't answer that question. It's day 2 of football in shorts.
Well, and
I can't answer that.
And again, it's OTAs. Like, these are voluntary workouts. Like you're only doing so much, like, for example, I remember like a couple of okay, rookie mistake here, right? First question I ever asked Mike Tomlin was, I think, during mandatory minicamp 2 years ago. And, I asked something about, because obviously the year before, the Steelers' run defense was absolutely atrocious. It was terrible, dead last in the league. And I was like, what are you guys doing right now to address those situations, address that issue, to rectify that and get better at it? And he said, we're not. And that was it. That was the end of the question, or the end of the answer. And I'm like, and then as soon as I got done asking and he answered, I'm like, that was a stupid freaking question, because no, they're not addressing it right now. That's not their goal during OTAs. They can't do that during OTAs because there's no contact. You're not it's just, that kind of stuff isn't being done really until training camp and preseason. So OTAs is like not even a primer. Like, it's just, yes, it's exciting, and yes, like the team is doing certain things to get the ball rolling. But right now, to me, the most valuable part of OTAs, and one of the reasons why I wish I was there, and trust me, we're getting closer to me being there, is to hear from the players, to hear their perspective on how, for right now, how this new offense is being installed.
How they're doing in general,
yeah. It's just, this is the first time we're really talking to players since the end of the season last year,
Buffalo.
So
other than rookies,
and so you kind of get a perspective on what they've done over the offseason, how for the offensive players, how they're liking what's being installed so far from Arthur Smith, how that communication is going. And then you begin to dig a little deeper. It's just, even for us in terms of how we ask questions as reporters, it gets, you don't dive it right into the deep stuff, early on. You kind of slowly dig at stuff. And then by the time even OTAs and mandatory minicamp come around, you start getting a little bit deeper by then. But right now, man, it's like you said, second day of OTAs.
Yeah, can't really glean anything from it. I don't mean to cut the show short, but it is 1,000,000 degrees in here, and I'm burning. It's a sauna in here. It's a sauna in here. So what I think we're gonna do is I'm gonna step away, and I think you could give your thoughts on the draft, on other things, maybe take a couple questions. Yeah. I'm gonna get out of here because I also have work to do. So I'll leave you with Chris. Chris, we will talk again Thursday, tomorrow.
Heck yeah.
Fair program. Chris will take you guys home. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
All right. What is up, everyone? Thank you guys for joining us today for sure. Mark says Arthur Smith definitely has the best stash in the NFL. Well, he had the best stash in the NFL. Definitely not anymore. By the way, I did see the weather yesterday in Pittsburgh. It was like 90 degrees or something like that. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, we're hitting 90 here already, but shoot, it's Texas. And Casey, it says here, it says learning the playbook is key. Like that is the essentially what's going on right now, right? They are still very, very much in the learning process. Even for the defense, like, yes, you're not installing a new defense, but there might be new wrinkles. There might be a few things. There are new players, and those new players are getting acclimated. And so just overall, it is very, very much a learning process. And a lot of what's going on is there's probably just as much going on in the classroom, indoors than there is actually happening on the field. So, the true football activity really doesn't truly begin until training camp. Like, yes, right now, yes, they're doing stuff. There is some team stuff, but again, this is just, it is very, very much in the infancy stages of getting everything ready for the season. The offense is not fully installed yet. The playbook is not even complete yet. Like, I don't know if you had a chance to see any of Dan Orlovsky's videos that he did on that he posted on social media, I think a week or so ago, around rookie minicamp actually. And he did a couple of videos where he took his 2008 playbook with the Texans, and he kind of outlined what it's like having an offense installed at the beginning of a season, or at least at the beginning of rookie minicamp and OTAs and stuff like that. Like, man, it's amazing to know and to see the detail that goes in. I understand, like, a lot of people want to joke and say, "Oh, Matt Canada's playbook was, colored with crayons in the back of an Eaton Park menu," or whatever you want to say it was. But man, like even for an offense that, like, no, that offense was still, like, if you were to actually look at that playbook and look at all the different, look at the cadence, look at all the different language and terminology and the plays, the formations, everything like that, like, it would still be very overwhelming for a lot of people. And so, and now you have a legitimate offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith. Like, you got to imagine that the learning process here is going to be, quite steep, and quite lengthy. And so, yeah, it's just, it's part of the process. And so that's why you have these OTAs. It's the next step in the offseason program of being able to install what's going on in the playbooks and on the offensive side and defensive side, where you can actually take what you're learning in the classroom and apply it on the field in a very, very controlled environment without contact. That's what the purposes of this is for. And so that's why I think, when we talk about actual content that we're getting from these events, that's why it's more important that what we're hearing from the players is more important than what we're actually seeing on the field. Tyler asks, do you see Zach Frazier being the starting center week 1? I don't think it'll be handed to him. And I understand that some fans are going to respond and be like, well, Kendrick Green was handed the job right away. Well, I think if there's any situation in which Mike Tomlin's going to learn his lesson, it's going to be that situation. You don't draft a guy, just hand him the keys to the car and say, here you go, because it doesn't always work out. Now, granted, Zach Frazier has a bit of a higher pedigree coming out of college as a center than Kendrick Green did. So I think Zach Frazier stands a good chance, but we'll see. And again, if he's not lining up there in OTAs with the first team, then it's not the end of the world. There's a whole training camp to go. So if I were a betting man, I would say yes, he's the starting center in week 1, but I don't want to just automatically assume that that's what's going to happen just because that's what makes sense to me. So, Corky's research says not going to be a very good year. Too many changes, too many young players, and he says 8 and 9. It's so early, and like I understand, like when the schedule came out, we did our very, very early record prediction and everything like that, and I even prefaced that by saying, this is not my official prediction. Like, man, it's May. There's so much room to go. But when you talk about new players, these new players are, Russell Wilson is a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Patrick Queen is a very, very accomplished, very, very good inside linebacker who knows the Steelers pretty well, played within the division. Now, obviously, doesn't know how the Steelers operate behind the scenes because, you don't know that stuff, playing, on the opposite sideline. But I don't want to just automatically assume that because there are changes like that. Shoot, man, there were a lot of changes last year too. Like, yeah, there weren't like overwhelming changes to the coaching staff or anything like that. But man, I would say this. You'll get a really, really good taste of just how much the changes are going to take to set in through the first month of the season. Because it's not like the first month of the season is the hardest part of the schedule. It's not ideal because 3 of the 4 games are on the road. But, I mean, Denver's not a very good team. Atlanta is a winnable game. Chargers they're essentially in the same situation. They got a new head coach. They've got a lot of, changes going on there too. But if things seem really clunky, clunky is probably the best word I can use through the first 4 or 5 games of the season, then yeah, those changes might take a while to set in. But if they hit the ground running and things are looking pretty streamlined right away, I don't know, man. To me, it's just too early to just say something to make that kind of a prediction. Yeah. So Sticky B says, I think it's crazy Atlanta is favored. So I might not. I am not going to claim to be like some sort of betting expert. I'm not. I think that when lines are set, that the home team automatically kind of gets, it's kind of like an unwritten rule, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong here because I might very well be wrong, but the home team kind of automatically gets a -3 whenever they put everything into account when it comes to calculating that final line, just because it's a home game or what. Yeah. And so if they already get that -3, and I think that's what the Falcons were set at, that's essentially saying it's a wash. So if you see like a road team favored, like if a road team has like a -4 line, then that's already kind of giving the home team like 3 points on top of that. So, and Joshua, says yes, home team always starts with 3. So yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's what I thought. But I'm not a betting man. I don't play those games. Like I just never really got into it. I understand a tiny bit of it, but I think that was something I always understood. So if the Falcons are officially -3 right now, it's essentially saying it's a wash, in which it should be. Like really, pretty much almost every single game in week 1 should be a wash right now. It's May. The fact that even betting lines are coming out for those games is ridiculous. I mean, it's May. There's so much that can happen right now. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's crazy. Anyway, should probably go ahead and wrap things up for today. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Sorry we didn't have a show yesterday. I felt like absolute crap. Corey pulled big time double duty yesterday, OTAs, and then went over to Pirates and spent probably 8 or 9 hours over at PNC Park, which ended up being a pretty exciting game when which Pirates came back. So yeah, at least it was interesting for him near the end. But it's yeah, sorry we didn't have a show yesterday, but appreciate you guys. So hold on, Cody. So if we're home and we're a wash versus the Falcons, that's wrong. I don't know. I mean, yeah, if the Steelers are ever like a -3 at home, doesn't really matter who the opponent is, then it's essentially saying it's a wash. Yeah. So, next tomorrow we'll be back. Corey will be on the show. Pretty much anything after tomorrow, I could be hit and miss because the house will officially be on the market. So looking forward to getting back to Pittsburgh. House will be officially on the market, so I could get a text or a call at any moment saying, "Hey, this person wants to come look at the house. Can you be out of the house in 30 minutes?" And the answer is always going to be yes, because when you're trying to sell the house, you don't ever, say no. So hoping for a quick sale. Quicker we sell this house, quicker we can get up there. Yeah, Joshua, appreciate that. Sell that house. Shoot, man, if you know somebody who wants to live about 30 minutes east of the city in a town that is growing, that has a good school district, you point in my direction. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow. Back here, 3:00. I think Ramon and DK are next. Pretty sure. Tune in. If not, I'm sure they'll communicate somehow, but I think they are next. So peace out, you guys. Appreciate it.